After waiting for months on end with bated breath, hoping for a whisper, a glimpse, a leak, we finally have got some news. And if you haven't been living under a rock, then you probably would know that over the last couple of months, DC has had some changes going on. So since this is kind of, a few days old news, I'm gonna go over each individual announcement and then kind of share how I feel about each announcement. So here we go. James Gunn went to Twitter to announce Chapter 1 of the official new DCU titled Gods and Monsters. Pretty catchy title. Though this isn't all the content that makes up Chapter 1, these are the few titles that James Gunn was willing to share with us at the moment, or really allowed to share. And there's some big ones. It all started off with Creature Commandos. Leave it to James Gunn to adapt something you've never heard about. It'll be an animated series that'll be the first official outing of Chapter 1, and the actors that voice the characters in the show will be playing their respective live-action counterparts. Way to one-up Disney. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. I think this is really an interesting move to start it off with something that is kind of out of the norm and something that not very many people are familiar with. And I think that it's a solid move if it's a good show. I personally had never heard of Creature Commandos, but I have heard of some of the characters that are going to be in the show. So I'm willing to give it a go. I'm willing to set my skepticism aside and just see how I feel about it when it's all said and done. So we'll see. We'll see. And the next announcement was the one that we had all been waiting for. The biggest one, if not one of the biggest ones. Wait for it. Superman Legacy. We're finally getting a Superman film. He's gonna be a reporter at the Daily Planet and a newly minted Superman in Metropolis. He's coming into a world that's already inhabited with superheroes. So Batman's been around for a while, and that Batman will be a couple years older than this Superman, which I like. I think that it allows us the chance to have kind of that mentor-mentee vibe to it, where they become friends down the road. So he's coming into a world that's already inhabited with superpowered people and superheroes and supervillains, which is an interesting take. And judging by past comments that James Gunn has made, they seem to be going in the direction of adapting at least part of Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman run, which is one of the best Superman stories ever written. So that's something to look forward to. Of course, spoiler alert, in All-Star Superman is a little bit older, a little more seasoned. So I'm guessing that they're just gonna take the tone and certain story beats and elements and incorporate it in along with other great Superman stories. That way it'll be cohesive and it'll fit the narrative of this year 2 Superman, if you will, this new Superman. And it'll have that joy, that hopeful take on this Superman. He's coming into a world where kindness is looked at as old-fashioned. So he is going to be the beacon of hope. He's going to stand for truth, justice, and the American way like we know him to from the comics. So it's going to be a very interesting take. Me personally, I was shattered when I heard that Henry Cavill would not be coming back to reprise his role. Man of Steel is one of my personal favorite movies of all time and one of the most underrated superhero movies ever. And I'm really just hoping for a badass Superman with some Man of Steel level action that raises the stakes and shows us the true power of Superman and shows us what he's truly made of. That's all I want. And I hope that it's not too campy and not too jokey. I hope that it finds this happy medium where the humor fits the movie, but it still has the stakes, it still has the action, it still has... I just want it to be good, but I will settle for it just being good. So that's something to look forward to. Next on the docket, we are finally getting the Green Lantern big budget show that we have all been waiting for. It'll air on HBO Max, and it'll follow not one lantern, but 2 lanterns. And not just 2 lanterns, but the lanterns. It'll follow Hal Jordan as well as Jon Stewart as they investigate this dark mystery that's going to remain terrestrial. I thought it was going to be more of a cosmic story, but they are going to remain terrestrial because whatever they are investigating is going to tie directly into the DCU. And that's what I love about this new direction. Everything ties into the greater narrative of the DCU. So everything matters. Everything has a place, and everything is going to be consequential to other films moving forward. And I think that's pretty great because it's something that we haven't really had before. The next announcement was a new film titled The Authority. I was wrong with my initial reaction to this. After looking into it, this is gonna be pretty freaking awesome. The Authority is a group of superheroes that operate in the gray area. They are willing to do whatever it takes, topple governments, maybe the occasional assassination of a prime minister, whatever it takes to achieve their goal of peace. Sounds like a pretty dark story and possibly an R-rated one at that. So I think it's gonna be very interesting. Me personally, I didn't hear of The Authority beforehand, and I'm sure that most people haven't, at least your average moviegoer, average comic book reader didn't really hear about The Authority. So I didn't really know what to make of it, but after looking into it and actually buying a couple of the comics for myself, this is one that I'm very excited for, because if this is done properly, it shows us that we're gonna have a little bit of flavor from everything. We're gonna have our dark, we're gonna have our funny, we're gonna have our in-betweensies. The DCU is gonna offer a little bit of everything, and I think that that's great. And it kind of settles my original fear that James Gunn was just gonna jokify the entire DCU, which was a fear I had going in, but after hearing his announcement, it has restored at least a little bit of hope in what we have to come. Wait a second. Did they hear you asking for more Themyscira? Well, you got it. Because we are getting Paradise Lost, a Game of Thrones-esque story based in Themyscira. At least from what James Gunn has told us. So this is going to be about the dawn of Themyscira, about the warrior inhabitants, the Amazonian warriors that make up this world, about its conception, which that's all that they really were willing to share with us. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how it turns out, but it sounds like a very dark, very gritty, and very violent show. And I am down with the cause, so gimme, gimme, gimme. I think it could be pretty great and another mature take on these Amazonian warriors. For years, fans of the comics, animated films, and games have been clamoring for one character. Just one. And that's Damian Wayne. And we are finally getting him in live action. DC presents to us The Brave and the Bold, a father and son story about Batman and Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne was raised by the League of Assassins. He is kind of a cold-blooded killing sumbitch. So when he comes under Bruce's wing, he has to teach him another way to deal out justice, not vengeance. James Gunn told us that this is gonna be basically the start of the Bat family, and it's gonna have and include some other members of the Bat family. I also think that if it's done right, it could be one of the best Batman films ever. It's going to be tonally very different from The Batman that we got last year, which I thought was a marvelous film. Finally, the first time we ever saw Batman as the world's greatest detective rather than just boom, boom, pow. We got to see him do what he is known to do, just like Ra's al Ghul calls him, detective. I think that's pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to it because if this is done right, we're going to see a Batman that is seasoned, that is a little older, that has went through several Robins and now has gotten to Damian Wayne, which means his rogue gallery is already established. Oh, he has suffered loss, win. He's a seasoned veteran and he has been a hero for many years coming up to this point. That is also why I feel that he is going to play a sort of mentor to Superman going into the future. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. I think this is a great concept for a movie. Let's see if they can execute on it. The next one was very interesting. It's one that people have been asking for a pretty long time. It was always up in the air. Booster Gold has been on the radar of not just fans but studio heads alike, and they've been trying to get it off the ground for years, whether it's in the form of a movie or a series. They have tried and failed on numerous occasions. Well, if this all comes to fruition, then we are finally getting Booster Gold. Booster Gold is a comical, whimsical, futuristic con man, basically. As James Gunn put it, he suffers from imposter syndrome. He comes to the past so he can play at being a superhero with futuristic tech, because in his time, he's not any of those things. I think that this could be a really fun and different take, and usually where Booster Gold is involved, so is Ted Kord's Blue Beetle. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see how that all turns out. So, the next announcement had me excited for more reasons than just one. To preface, Tom King is one of the greatest comic book minds of our time, and this film will be an adaptation of one of the best Supergirl stories in recent memory. Presenting Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. A story about a Supergirl that has to go through trials and turmoils that leave her traumatized and jaded, bringing me to the second reason why I'm excited about this announcement. This is a dark story for a mature audience, which means that, at least from what we're hearing so far, the DCU will not be nerfed and childish. That's a win in my book. DC has always felt more adult and dealt with mature themes and subject matter, which is what drew me to the Snyderverse and why I was so fond of it. So hearing this gives me hope for the future of the DCU. Last but certainly not least, we're getting a Swamp Thing movie. We're getting a Swamp Thing movie. This horrifying tale This horrifying tale, which James Gunn had produced and tackled on the DC Universe app way before it merged with HBO Max, is one part horror story, one part love story about a swamp monster. And these were just the titles that'll tie directly into the new DCU continuity. But Gunn also made clear that there will be alternate and disconnected stories based on DC properties, confirming the Batman Part 2 slated for a 2025 release and Joker 2. Titles of that nature will carry the DC Black Label moniker. Finally, they're doing what they should have been doing all along, and another strong decision that separates them from Marvel. Disconnected singular stories that don't tie in and are meant to be taken as is. Another important note that Gunn made is that these movies, series, and so forth will be director-driven, each installment having its own unique take and style, giving the reins to the artist in a combined effort to bring these beloved world and characters to life with a singular focus, telling amazing, interconnected stories, fleshing out intricate characters, and building out broad and detailed worlds for the fans to be enveloped in. The mission? Make DC great again.